It's Miss Lamb back with the third and final part of our introduction. Now that you hopefully understand what literary criticism and theory are, how ideologies work, and why the study of theory is valuable, I'd like to talk about how we'll approach literature this year. Since I'm obviously not an objective reader or teacher, no one is, it's all about ideology, you should know some assumptions that I have about literature. When literature is read, there are three main entities involved: the writer, the text, and the reader. The author and the reader meet in the text. Think about how you feel about the author of your favorite book. In a very general way, we can say that each of these entities emphasize one ideology of literary criticism. Author-centered criticism believes that the most important thing to understand is the author's mindset and intention. The meaning of the work is what it meant to the author. The text is supplemented with a lot of biographical information, and the reader is asked to get into the author's head. Text-centered criticism is most concerned with the words on the page. This kind of criticism looks for patterns and other regularities that give a text meaning. Reader-centered criticism begins with the experience of individuals when they read texts. Rather than have inherent meaning, a text takes on meaning only once it has entered the mind of the reader. And since we all experience the world through our ideologies, there is no such thing as objective or neutral meaning. For example, think about the word mother. Your thoughts likely have a lot to do with your experience of your own mother, combined with your knowledge of how mothers behave in general. A state of ideological conflict exists between these approaches. Different teachers and different schools of literary theory will champion or advocate for the ones they feel most connected to. I lean most towards reader-centered criticism for one main reason. Reading literature should feel like an important activity. You should love it. Otherwise, why are we doing it? When we draw on experience, the literature becomes relevant to us, right now, in this moment. It connects us to ourselves and to the other readers we interact with. I also think that reader-centered criticism is more valuable than the other two approaches. Author-centered criticism and historical critics dominate most literature courses. Think about the introduction you learn at the beginning of each new text. And it's a wonderful approach to literature until it tries to maintain that it's objective and absolute. The reality is that literature does not live through accuracy about the past. It lives in the present through the enthusiasm of readers. In fact, in 1967, literary critic Roland Barthes proposed the idea of the death of the author. Simply put, this shifts the focus from authorial intention, what the author meant to communicate, to the reader or the text instead. So for all intents and purposes, the author is dead. Text-centered criticism is useful in making us look carefully at the words on the page in front of us. They make an error, though, whenever they begin to talk about objective interpretation. Whenever interpretation is taking place, there is someone interpreting, and that person has his or her own agenda and ideology, which plays a major role in meaning. If we want to understand what happens when literature is read, we need to account for its very subjective nature. Is this the only way to view the study of literature? Absolutely not. An author-centered or text-centered critic would tell you a very different story. I just think it would be a far less interesting one. So join me now as a maker of meaning, as the most important force in the reading and interpreting of literature, and let's read and construct meaning and argue and reconcile and learn and grow. It should be an interesting ride, one that I hope you can be as excited about as I am.